So first I would like to thank the C++ meetup organization team from Stockholm. They always do an amazing job, and it's always like very interesting to have contact with the community, so thank you guys. So today I'm going to talk about compile time type introspection in C++. We are going to use a feature from C++ called Spinay to do that. So my first question will be, who has heard about Spinay? Okay, oh, quite a lot of people. Who has used Spinay? Okay. So it's gonna be what I would call beginner to medium level talk, so might not be interesting for everyone, but hopefully you will learn something. So the reason I started to do research about Spinay was like 2 years ago. I took a look at a library called BoothHANA, which is created by Wisdom, and that's an amazing library. If you have never used it, you should use it for doing template metaprogramming. And BoothHANA has some features that permit you to do type introspection. So I took a look at how it was working internally, and then I had to dig a bit more about Spinay to refresh my knowledge. And this is why I came up with this presentation. So first, what would introspection mean in C++? So I guess most of you know what is introspection. Introspection is the feature that some languages have that permit you to query the type of an object at runtime and potentially do some manipulation or get some information about it, basically. And that's very nice to solve a lot of problems that you have, generally speaking, in software engineering. C++ has introspection by default. You can use RTTI, runtime type information. For instance, if you want to know the name of an object, of the type of an object at runtime, you can use the type ID operator on that object, call the name function on the type info structure, and you will get that name. But that's very limited. That's roughly what you can do with RTTI, this and dynamic cast. You can do fancy stuff with it. It's also not very portable. I think that when you call name, you're not quite sure, or depending on the compiler, what you will have in your hand. So, yeah, that's not very good. Still, you would like to have introspection in C++, for instance, to solve that kind of problem. Let's say that you have a project where you have different classes, and all these classes have different ways to be serialized. Some are using toString, for instance. Some are using a serialized member function. Or some are even more tricky. They got a functor called serialize, and you can call that functor to get the serialized version of your structure. And to do that, to make it more convenient, you would like to create a serialized function that take all these different behavior and try to come up with one function that would work for all of these types. So that would be really interesting to do. So in C++, you can't use RTTI to do that. Clearly, that's not possible. But what you can do is that you can use compile time introspection. C++ has a lot of compile time tools. You can use template metaprogramming, for instance. You can use constant expressions. Basically, you play with the compiler. You try to bend the behavior of your compiler to do some computation for you during the compilation phase. So we are going to use this compile time introspection. For instance, if you are using HANA, the library I mentioned earlier, what you could do is that you could use isValid function that you have in HANA. To that function, you pass a lambda, and that lambda check whether an object X has a serialized member function or not. You end up having a functor, or well, a callable, basically, has serialized that you can call to test whether a type has serialized or not. And then you can use it within a function, or a function serialized. So if your object has serialized, then call serialized. That's simple. Otherwise, use fallback to toString. And this works. So maybe this seems a bit magic for you. And what we are going to do today is try to understand how isValid is working and how we can use it within a serialized function. So that's the goal. To be able to do that, we are going to use SFINAE, which stands for substitution failure is not an error. So for those of you that don't understand this concept, I'm going to clear this right now. And to understand this feature or concept, you need to understand how a function call works from a compiler point of view. So let's take an example where you do a call foo42. Your compiler is going to have two phases. The first phase is a name lookup. And during the name lookup, your compiler is going to find two things that look like foo, that would be, let's say, variable in this context, which are two functions. It involves a lot of things like argument-dependent lookup, that kind of things. At the end, you end up having this set of candidate function, which is passed to the overload resolution phase. And during the overload resolution phase, your compiler is going to select which version of your function is the best to use. And in this case, since we are calling with 42, it's going to be the integer version, which is the best viable function. Simple. It gets a bit trickier when you have function templates. So I'm going to do a call again to foo. And this time I pass a template argument, integer, and two arguments, 42 and 43. So once again, we have a name lookup. Your compiler is going to find all the foos. We end up having one function template. Since we provide a template argument integer, your compiler can do a first substitution phase, and it's going to replace the template parameter t here with integer. So we end up having this signature. Still, your compiler needs to know what is the type of u. And to do this, your compiler is going to be smart enough to deduce that from 43, u should be an integer. So that's the template argument deduction phase, which brings us to another substitution phase where we replace u by integer. Okay. And at the end of the day, your compiler is going to select that version of the foo function. Everyone follow until now? Okay. So let's pick an example which is even more complicated, and this time we're going to have a substitution failure. So I call foo42 again, and during the name lookup, I have two functions. A first version of foo, which is normal, and a second version, which is a bit trickier. This second version has a second argument, where you have a pointer to a type x, and that type x is defined within t. Okay? First substitution phase, nothing to do, since we didn't provide an explicit template argument. So your compiler jumps straight away to the deduction phase, and will deduce from t here, from 42, that t equal integer. Here come substitution failure, because if we replace t by integer, you end up doing integer : x and try to get a pointer on it, and your compiler, well, you can't do that because x doesn't exist within integer. So something will happen, and instead of throwing you an error, like yelling at you, your compiler is going to follow this rule. A substitution failure is not an error, so you won't have an error. Your compiler is simply going to discard that version of foo. So at the end of the day, during the overload resolution phase, you end up having only the normal version of foo left, and your compiler is going to pick this version of foo. Now you need to notice something very interesting, is that if we had passed to foo type t which effectively add an x, then we wouldn't have any substitution failure, and in that case we wouldn't have two foo version during the overload resolution. So that's very interesting because according to T, we can trigger a different behavior from the compiler point of view. And the way you use FinA is that you trigger this behavior for your own means. So to play with FinA, it's very nice to know what are the rules for overload resolution. And if you take a look at the rules, it's something very big in the standard, so you don't want to take a look at that actually. What you need to remember in our case is that function complex, they have the priority over validate functions when it comes to the overload resolution. Okay, everyone's following? Perfect. So we are going to use this rule, and as well the fact that we know how to do FinA to do introspection. And let's start with the ugly version in C++ 98. So in C++ 98, let's see how we could do it. To be able to know whether a type T has X or not, using what we have learned earlier, we can define two versions of a function called, let's call it has type X. A first version, which is FinA on X, as we have learned earlier to do, and another version, which is a variadic function. And since that variadic function has, you have to remember that that variadic function has a lower priority compared to this version. Okay? So, if I call as type X with 42, then this version is going to FinA because integer doesn't have X. So the compiler only has this version of the function left, and is going to take it and return false. Nice. On the contrary, if you pass to has type X a type which effectively has X, you end up having the two versions left in the overload resolution, and your compiler is going to pick this one because it has the priority. So it ends up having true. So you can see we can trigger a different behavior according to if T has X or not. The problem is that as type X gives you a Boolean, and what we want to have is not a Boolean, we want to have a compile time Boolean, because we like to do compile time computations. So in C++ 98, to create a compile time Boolean, you have to use some black magic, and that black magic is called sizeoff. The reason sizeoff is interesting is because sizeoff permits you to fakely evaluate an expression. This expression gives you a type, and sizeoff gives you the size of this type at compile time. So we are going to kind of use sizeoff in a dirty way to get a compile time Boolean. So what we do is that we define two types. A first type which is 1 byte, another one which is twice the size of the first one, and we call them yes and no. Once again, we have two versions of a function called test, one which is FinA on X, and one which is variadic. And as I said earlier, we are going to use sizeoff to fakely evaluate a call to test, and we pass to test T. So this is going to give us a compile time size in some ways, and we can compare this size with the size of yes. And we can store all of this within an enumeration value. So we effectively ends up having a meta function that give us whether a type has X or not, and give us a compile time Boolean. Okay? Yeah, and we can use it at compile time. Now, you may remember that what we wanted to do wasn't to check whether a type has a subtype X or not. What we wanted to do is to check whether a type has a member function called serialize or not. So in C++98, you will end up writing something like that, which is quite tricky. So once again, you use this variadic function, these two function templates, that is FINAE. And this function template use something a bit more advanced called really has to check whether your type C has serialized or not. This is a bit tricky well, it's actually quite tricky to understand. The reason is that in C++98 you couldn't use expression FINAE. So you were forced to use some dirty hacks to make it work. And you are not even sure if it would work on all the compilers. But at the end of the day, you could end up having a meta function that say to us, okay, that type that you give me as serialized member function or not. That's very nice. So the first thing that you would do when you got that meta function is that you would like to use it in your beautiful serialized function, and something tricky is going to happen. Actually, your compiler will yell at you. If you use has serialized right here, within this if, one of the branch is going to be a dead branch. And maybe your compiler can optimize this dead branch, but it still needs to be able to compile it. That's something from, that's a C++ behavior that you can't, say that, you have to deal with. So if I call serialize 42, it's roughly equivalent to this, where you have if false, and you effectively have a dead branch right here. But your compiler is still going to complain, I need to be able to, well, your integer type doesn't have a member function called serialize, and, well, it will throw you an error. So that's troublesome. So what we need to do is not to have branching, we need to have compile time branching, according to compile time boolean. And we are going to create this. So to do compile time branching, you can use enable if. Enable if is something that you may know because it's a chip within the standard library in C++ 11, but you can recreate it as well in C++ 98. So how does enable if works? If you pass to enable if a compile time boolean and a type, and you try to access to : type, well, enable if is going to give you the type that you pass, so string. So in this case, this line right here is equivalent to string x equal hey. Okay? But if you pass to enable if a compile time boolean false, when you try to access to : type, it's going to be a failure because there is no type defined within enable if. So the way you create enable if is quite simple. You declare a class template, where in that case it's more like a structure template, where you have two arguments, a compile time boolean, type. In the base class template, you don't define t equal to type, but you create a specialization for compile time boolean true, where you effectively declare t equal type. And so you can see that here we have a failure according to compile time boolean. So you can use actually enable if to do SFINAE according to compile time boolean. So let's see how we could rewrite serialize. We would define two versions of serialize. One which is made to call the member function, and one which is made to call toString. And we would actually use enable if on the return type of our serialize function. So let's take a look. If I call serialize of 42, here in this version, has serialize of integer : value is going to give you a compile time boolean false. So when we try to access : type, well, there's going to be a failure, and this failure is going to create substitution failure, basically. So your compiler is going to take, let's take a look at what happened on that version of the function. Here I put a negation, which is very important to notice. And So this serialize of t, which gave us false, is going to be a true, actually. And in this case, there won't be any substitution failure in that version of the function. So we effectively end up being in this version. In the same way, if we are called with a type which effectively had serialized, then we will end up in that version. So it works. We got our first serialized function. Hooray. So, as you can see, SFINAE before C++11 was like very verbose. It felt more like a hack of the language more than a real feature. It was quite tricky. You had some extension that you could use to help you, but generally speaking, you wouldn't like to use SFINAE before C++11. Thankfully, C++11 the next standard came to save us. And we're going to take a look at what are the tools it brings to us. So first, in C++11, you can use expression SFINAE. As I told you earlier, this is going to simplify your life. It means that if you want to SFINAE in the signature of your function, and in this signature you have an expression to do the SFINAE, well, you can do it, and that's allowed by the standard, and in some places. And it wasn't well defined before. To help us to do expression SFINAE, we are going to use two other tools from C++11. Decltype, which is like sizeof, but instead of giving us a size, it's going to give us a type of an expression. And declval, which permits us to create a type even though we don't have the permission to actually create that type. So let's see how we can use this. So here I have a type that that has a default constructor which is delete. But still, I can use stud declval to create a fake instance of that type. I can call a function. I can do a function call on it, and I ask the compiler, okay, give me the type of this expression. And here the type will be integer because foo return an integer. Another trick that you need to remember is that if within your expression in C++ you have a comma, the first part will be evaluate, but the content is going to be discard. The second part is going to be evaluate, and the content is going to be keep. Okay? So if I do a decltype on this expression with a comma, then I'm going to end up having the type boolean, and not the type integer. And that's very interesting. That's interesting because we can force decltype to give us a given type, but we can still SFINAE on an expression on the first part, because this first part is going to be evaluated. Okay? One last really nice tool from C++11 is that you have constant expressions, which permit you to say to the compiler, this function that you give me, for instance, factorial, well, I want you to evaluate it at compile time, so just do it. And that simplifies a lot of things. So, you also have from the standard library two types which encapsulate some constant compile time boolean, true and false, called stud false type and stud true type. Let's see how we can use we can rewrite our serialized function. So this time, I don't need to use sizeof anymore. I can do a call straight away because we have constant expressions, and I within my two functions, because we are still playing with this variadic function and this SFINAE version of the function, we can also use constant expression and return a boolean straight away. That's nice. Here it's interesting to see that I use decltype to define the return type of my test function. And if this type C doesn't have serialized, well, this is going to be a substitution failure. If we have a substitution failure, then this version is going to be taken. So it's the same, it works in the same way. But it feels much nicer to look at than this version using really has, which was a bit harder to understand. Okay, since we don't have that much time, I'm going to keep that one. So, C++ 11 brings you also auto, and auto has two purposes. The first purpose is that you can use auto to infer the type. So for instance here, if I call foo, since we know that foo returns a std string, well, your compiler is smart enough to deduce that test should be a std string as well. But C++ 11 also has another usage for the auto specifier. You can actually use it to declare your function in another way. And that other way is called the trailing return type syntax. So why is it interesting? It's because you use it that way. You say you use auto, you give a function name, you specify the parameters of your function, and then after you have done this, you specify after an arrow the return type. So here, for instance, I'll have a foo function which has a return type which is decal type of t.serialize. Why is it interesting? It's really interesting because you can see that within this decal type, I'm using the small t right here. I'm not using the template parameter big T. I'm using the argument itself. And that's very nice because we can use, we don't have to use decal val actually. It's even a shorter version than what we have learned to do just earlier.
So,
yes.
So could you stick an argument, say that you require that serialize would take an integer? So could you just put 1 inside the parentheses and that would work?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So you could test for different variants of the serialize?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Yeah, it's basically an expression, so you can write whatever you would do in an expression, and it's going to be thickly evaluated. So that's interesting. In case you want to serialize passing a string, for instance, or a different way to serialize.
Yeah, string view or string or...
Yes, it works. The thing that you have to understand is that if we use decal type with this small t using the normal syntax, then your compiler would have complained, because at that point your compiler doesn't know what is t, and since C++ parser are like one pass, it needs to know what you are talking about. So that's why when we were using decal type on instead of this auto keyword, we have to use stud decal val on the parameter t, because at that point here the compiler knows that big T exists. Okay? Everyone follow? So next, C++ 14. C++ 14 is very interesting for one thing when it comes to well, maybe some others, but one that I particularly like are generic lambdas. Why generic lambdas? Because a generic lambda it roughly acts as if you had a template parameter right here, but instead you use the auto keyword. Why is it interesting? Is because you can see that from this signature, we can, by default, the lambda have used the trailing return type syntax, so we can have a nice signature to do spinning. That's very interesting. Another way to see it is that this lambda is roughly equivalent from the compiler point of view to declare an unnamed type that we don't know that the compiler generates. And that type is actually a callable type, so it define the call operator, and the signature of that operator would roughly log that up. So you can see this signature is actually very close to this signature, but we can fit it in one line. So that's very interesting. It's more like a syntax sugar to do spinning. So now it's time to blend all our knowledge and to recreate this isValid function that I show you earlier. So what would be the requirement for isValid? First, isValid is a function. Nothing surprising right here. That function must be a compile time function. Otherwise, we couldn't use aserialize in compile time computations. Okay. Isvalin is taking a generic lambda that we are going to use to sphinay. So this signature is very nice to sphinay on whether X has serialized or not. Okay. What Isvalid give to us is actually this mysterious type, and I call this type a container type. The reason I call it a container type is because it will actually remember what was the signature of our lambda right here. So the type of our lambda. So yeah, I call this the checking type, the type of the lambda. And this callable type, callable object, takes actually another type, another object from another type that I call it the type to check. And what it does is when you call aserialize, it checks whether the type to check would sphinay on the lambda, so on the checking type. Okay, that's our requirements. And at the end of the day, it gives us a compile time boolean. Easy. So, our isValid function would look like this. It's very simple. It effectively takes as a template parameter the checking type, and it's a constant expression to make it compile time function. It effectively forwards the checking type to a container. And that container, well, that's the tricky part. Not so tricky, but. So let's build our container. Oh, sorry. So our container is a class template or structure template, I don't know if you can say that, which basically take as a template parameter the checking type to be able to retain that type. And it's callable. So we define a call operator, which is constant expression one. And we take as a parameter the type to check. So in our case, it would be the 42. Okay. And then we are going to use the sphinay again for the last time. So we define our variadic function to sync everything. That is that's sphinay, yeah. And we have our sphinay version of the function, and I decide to use the trailing return syntax because it looks fancier. And here is where the magic happens. So I do a decal type to sphinay, and then I fakely instantiate the checking type using decal val. And I call on that checking type a fake instantiation of the type to check. So here it would be the lambda, and it's like roughly like trying to call the lambda on a fake 42. Okay. So if our lambda would sphinay on the integer, then actually this expression right here would sphinay, and then this function would sphinay. So you would end up being in this variadic function, and it returns false. If it didn't sphinay, then everything goes fine, and we would end up having true. Everyone understand? Does it get a bit harder? Okay. Well, anyway, we don't have that much time, so yeah, accept the fact that this works. The last thing is that we are going to use C++ 17 because we're in 17. And when I told you that we couldn't do compile time branching, I was lying. Actually, we can. In C++ 17, you can use the if constant expression, which permits you to use aserialize straight away right here, instead of using this ugly enable. And that's so much nicer to look at. Isn't it? So that's it. Today we have seen that it's actually possible to do introspection in C++. It only works at compile time, so that's very nice because it has no runtime cost. It's quite bad because it doesn't work with inheritance, for instance. So that's a concept that you have at runtime, so you can't play with that. We also have seen that it felt very hackish in C++ 98, and that it feels a bit nicer to use in C++ 17, especially with the if constant expression. Don't be afraid to use it. It's used even in the standard library, I think, so that's not black magic either. Finally, you have to know that maybe this kind of tricks wouldn't be necessary if we had a real C++ static reflection or just reflection. So you have a lot of how's it called, white paper about that these days. So maybe in 2020, if we're lucky, I'm not quite sure. So we will see what the committee do on that. Another thing to notice is that if we had concepts, well, we could simply say to like have, instead of using spin-A, you could simply apply some concept to your template parameters and some constraint, and say I only accept in this function some types which have the serialized method, for instance. So it would make all of this kind of useless. But that's good to know. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, that's right now. Yes?
Yeah, could you back up some slides?
Yes?
There, yeah. Why do you have the int?
Is to be so the int is to be able to give the priority to this version of the function compared to this one. If you had no argument, I think that this version would be taken.
Okay.
You need the ellipsis variadic function because it always has the
Yes.
lowest priority.
Yeah.
So you need something that will match that. But an int is a good candidate.
You can put whatever you
Pretty
want.
much anything.
Yeah, that's why I didn't talk about it, but that's good that you notice it. You can pass whatever you want, as long as you pass an argument to give a higher priority to this version compared to this one. Okay. Another question? No questions? Okay, well. If you didn't understood correctly everything, you can still reach me on my mail, or you can go on my blog. I did a post about that as well. So maybe it's going to be easier to understand on paper more than in 35 minutes. Okay, that's it.